Race. It goes towards Overrun. Brilliant save indeed. Walsh has scored. Leicester City are in dreamland now. Vardy in the middle. This could be a huge moment. Vardy scores. And it's pandemonium in Leicester.
Mahrez with his left. Albrighton with his right. It is Mahrez. It's a good ball in. Morgan's there. It's in. Leicester City score. It is a captain's goal from Wes Morgan, who lifted the Premier League trophy in May. He might have played a big part now in taking Leicester City through to the quarter-finals of the Champions League.
Lift the trophy to the skies. Leicester City are the champions of the Premier League. 5,000 to 1.
Good evening and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses. I wasn't expecting to be back on again tonight, but here we are. And the breaking news in the last few minutes from two very reliable sources. Let's get straight into it and bring it up on screen. First of all, Rob Dorset, who's been very vocal over the last couple of days. He says, exclusive, Marty Cifuentes has verbally agreed a deal to become the new Leicester head coach. Talks progressed well today. Now only the final details of his contract are to be sorted and legal matters surrounding him given back 500k of compensation to QPR. Now that makes more sense there, Manny, by the way. We'll talk about in a sec, but he was clearly given compensation. So he has to give it back before he can join another club. And then secondly, from Alex Crook, Marty Cifuentes now agreed to become the new Leicester manager, as exclusively reported last night. He will pay part of his own compensation to former club QPR. Also understand he has been told he has to sell players in order to bring in new signings. So let's talk about it. Let's go straight off the bat, Manny, mate. How are you feeling with this new, breaking news?
Pleased that the rumour was the one that actually materialised and ended up getting over the line. I'm pleased that he seems to want the job. He's not just sort of sitting back, taking his money, relaxing, thinking it's just about cash. He's willing to make compromises to get the deal done. That shows his desire to get here. It's, we're still early in pre-season, so it gives him plenty of time. We've already spoken plenty about the reasons why he would be a sensible choice. And, it wasn't so long ago that we were linked with the likes of sort of Daesh and Wilder and others. And it's been stressful, I know, particularly for yourself. So to actually end up, after all of those routes that we could have gone, to go down this route is one that I am definitely pleased with.
Anil, obviously we were just on Fox's Den not long ago, mate. We were saying at the end, I was saying at the end that, maybe we'll have an emergency stream. I've been saying that for the last few days, but Anil, here we are. It looks like it is all done. Marty Cifuentes will be the next Leicester manager.
How rude of the club. Didn't even have enough time to get a Spanish flag and some tapas out to make a joke of it. So I'll have to work on that. But what Manny said, I agree. I think this is a good appointment. Interesting to hear the rest of the news. I think we should talk about that. But finally, we've got something done. I mean, I still think it's shambolic from the club, though. I mean, this guy's been out of work for a long time. They should have had Rude sacks and Cifuentes in the next day. But look, I think it's so much better than having Daesh, Wilder, Gary O'Neill. It would have been quite a depressing season, in my opinion. I think this will be entertaining. There is still that element of the unknown, but that's a good thing, right? That was the great thing with Maresca, right? Maresca could have been a bust. You could have turned out that you can't, just being a number two, you can't step up to being a number one. So let's see if we do see some Barcelona, Johan Cruyff style coming back in with the 4-3-3. Actually, that second half of Andy King, we played more of a 4-3-3. There wasn't a double inversion. So I think already it's looking quite good. So, yeah, I'm excited and already looking forward to the friendly on Saturday. Roll on the Marty party.
100%. Ragsy, another one who was on Fox's Den, mate. We were talking about it for a while. Bloody hell, we've got all the lads joining now. Here's Lofty as well. Quack. Ragsy, I mean, yeah, we were talking about Cifuentes. How happy are you now that it looks like it's going to be done?
Yeah, happy enough. More relieved than anything that, finally the manager search after 82 days now should have come to an end, that the board haven't really bottled it. So, and, I think they have stumbled on a decent appointment here. I am intrigued by this. There are some concerns, like, I think Simon Jordan, I don't really sort of pay attention to a lot of what he says. I think he speaks things with clarity, but not with a lot of sense at times. But he does raise some concerns. But I think it's kind of similar concerns to what Danny Roll had at Sheffield Wednesday, and the lack of form and stuff, and the patchy form, and bringing through like whatever personnel that he had into the side, and just trying to figure out how to sort of piece a team together. And I think like that's the sort of similar issues that Marty had over at QPR. He still would be brought in with a far better squad over here, so I think he'd have a lot more to be able to work with. And yeah, it's just intriguing. Like, it's like what we sort of alluded to earlier in regards to his philosophy and what he could potentially bring. It could also transpire as to like what was building under Enzo. Maybe we could continue along that pathway. I think Cooper has certainly made a dent in that progress with some of the crap he's brought through. But, those are problems to sort of figure out. I would sit here and say, though, like, especially if we can keep like some of the bigger players, the better players here, let's say if like a Bilal somehow like is convinced to go and stay here, or if Mads doesn't really get his move and stuff, things could happen later on in the window that, a deal pops up and suddenly the players' heads turn. But if we somehow manage to keep them, like we kept some of the quality that we did last time, then a lot more to work with here. So yeah, let's see how it rolls out into the end of the window, but still a lot of work to do.
Let's go to Doc. He can't take that stupid smile off his face. There you go. When Doc's like happy with the man, because the Bo Svensson name got thrown out there yesterday, and he didn't even mention it. He didn't even care about the Dane. He wanted Marty. Talk to us, Doc. How are you feeling, mate, with this news?
I'm feeling great. I mean, I think I'm the only one who mentioned this guy 2 months ago when we were talking about potential managers, and I said I'd like Marty Cifuentes, and I got my wish in the end. It sounds like I'm absolutely elated. I've still got no internet. Haven't had that really since Sunday, except for a few hours yesterday. So, I'm joining in on the phone. But when such good news arrived, especially, and I think this really has to be put into the context of the situation we found ourselves in, right? For about a week now, we've been listening to Gary O'Neill, Sean Dyche, Chris Wilder being leading candidates. So to actually end up with someone progressive who can move this club forward, yes, he might not be the perfect candidate in an ideal world that we could buy for 10 million euros compensation and we had no PSI issues and no John Rodkin on top. But this is definitely the best one we could have gotten in this situation. I'm absolutely delighted we didn't end up with fucking Chris Wilder, man. We would have been in trouble, and we'll be playing some sexy football, something we know the squad likes, looking from how they played under Enzo. So I think someone like Ricardo Pereira, he'll definitely run out his contract here and spend another year looking to bring us back up, because he'll love the role he plays today. I was watching a video as well, how he did with the right back at QPR, who was one of the most attacking threats on that team, actually. I can't remember his name because he was probably a woeful player, to be honest. But, I mean, if you look at his heat map, how he played in the game, it was less of this inverting into being the double pivot, but more like you see with Enzo now, where Correa has become a big goal threat on the left back, more playing this, I think you and it would call it the auxiliary winger, right? Getting into the edge of the area, firing these shots away. And when you have such a good technical player as Ricardo Pereira, well, I think if he doesn't get injured, he will have a 10 out of 10 year under Cifuentes.
Anil, so we were wondering yesterday, because there was compensation mentioned and all of this. So it sounds a little bit clearer now. So it sounds like he was given compensation when he was let go by QPR, around 500,000. He's going to have to basically give that back. So that clears up the confusion. He's going to basically have to pay that back to QPR, which I'm sure Leicester might give him in a signing on fee or something like that, right? But that situation then maybe doesn't seem as complicated as it once was. Maybe we don't need to pay him out off. He just needs to pay that 500,000 back to QPR. And that is, I mean, that's commitment from him. He's excited to get on board with Leicester. He's happy to pay that back and take over. That's only a positive.
Big positive. I mean, you could say that Steve Cooper was the only one that wanted to be here last season as well. So you have to take it with a pinch of salt. But I do think that that's great. And I do actually think maybe, Andreas, you can comment on this more. But if you look at this guy, he has worked his way up through the leagues and he's really pushed himself, right? He's gone to Scandinavia, then he's gone to the Championship. He's gone to like a, you can tell he's someone who's desperate to have that chance at like a big club. And right now, okay, it might be not the most ideal situation to have a club like this, but I bet he's absolutely loving it. He went, wow, I'm going to have a squad like that at my hands, at my disposal. It was great actually hearing sort of the smile and the happiness from Manny the other day when like I could see the cogs turning. He was like, hang on, and this and that. Oh, this could work, and I feel the same thing. That we won't know until the ball gets rolling, so to speak. But we've already seen that he managed to apply his style to like a team that was nowhere near as good. I think we have to say that there are concerns obviously over how he did this season. But look, I think it's one of those cases where like Vincent Kompany's kind of shown this, right? He tried to play his style with Burnley in the Premier League. It didn't work. But then he goes to Bayern Munich and they win Bundesliga easily. So I think if you've got someone who's got a style that is going to work when you've got high quality technical players, we've got that, right? We've got a goalkeeper that can play out with his feet. We've got the regista in wings. We've even got other players who could step in there in case we need to rotate. We've got the wingers. The 8, maybe we could improve him a bit, maybe the striker, but it's more than good enough for the Championship. So I think we're going to have a really good season. I'm licking my lips over looking at how we're going to play in the pre-season friendlies already.
I was going to say as well, obviously people have mentioned Hammerby in the chat. And Nil, think back to the scouts.
Mr. Arabi. Yeah. Well, also, I think Duck mentioned this, but I had a look on the stats. But the record in Sweden for the youngest ever team is Marty Cifuentes. And in the top 10, he's in there, I think, 4 times out of 10 were sides that he lined up with, right? So that shows you that he can use youth. And as I said to you before, it's always been shown as well that, like, these people that believe in that Barcelona style, Marty hasn't worked there, but he obviously grew up as a big fan of that. And they're all about using the talents from the academy who are used to playing in a certain way, because it's much easier to coach those younger players coming through. They're like a completely, again, Manny says this the whole time. It's like, they haven't got any of this debt in their mind about how I'm supposed to play. Every instruction is fresh. They're keen. They want to play. So I think that's really ideally suited to how this sort of style kind of, be used. And yeah, look at the way that some of our players were already combining. Like, again, all this week's about the managerial talk. But again, I love the way that you guys on Good Morning Foxes did actually talk about the match for a little bit. And some of those players, in this sort of style. I mean, Lewis Page signed that contract, mate. Playing in a 4-3-3 is one of the box crashers. Wing Siesta, finally his dream comes true. I think there's a lot of the stars are aligning.
Manny, over to you, mate. I mean, there was a comment in the chat a second ago that said it's nice to see some smiles. I mean, Manny, it's been people accuse us of being negative and all of this all the time, right? And it's like, well, what is there to be positive about? Now, Manny, we can actually look forward. I'm sure it will only last a few weeks because then we get the points deduction, but still, you know what I'm saying? We can look forward under a new manager, the squad that we've got available. We can start talking more about what we expect to see this season, and that's exciting.
I think that game against Peterborough was good for everyone, good for the fans, good for us. It's just a reminder of what we do have to look forward to. You saw some of the talents on the pitch, and it's not just look forward to this season, but for the coming years to come. We can see a team emerging from these kids, and obviously with Fatawi to come back is a massive thing. Still don't know who's going to go, but the club could have gone down a different direction. We talked about compatibility. We talked about how does Jeremy Monga fit in with Sean Dyche? It doesn't work. And the club has actually, it's round holes for a round peg. So they've actually done it's not about sort of smiles or moaning as such. It's like, look, all of us we love this club and we want to go back up and we want to relive the good times and we want to create new memories and the rest of it, of course. And everybody has a different idea of how you get there. So I think it's actually, we do an important service by continually hammering the debate. You just can't, the debate never stops. And we're rushing it out, we're going through it, we're approaching it from every different angle. We've got more and more fan engagement with people doing their own homework, people watching games, people watching interviews. I think this is a really, it's fantastic that the fan base is all together. I think they're all coming along with this. Even those ones, interestingly. Do you remember when the initial rumours about Dyche, I think it was, came out, and the responses on X were really positive? We like Sean Dyche. Well, actually, those same fans must be still liking this because similarly we've had lots of positive, even more so with this guy. And, sometimes you need, like, say, a unifying character. There's been a split in the fan base for a little while about, not more Enzo stuff. It's too slow, too boring. Can we try this? Oh, don't be silly. Don't try that. We've been having this debate. This guy, I like the analogy I used the other day of Luis Enrique.
Yeah,
Luis Enrique, schooled at Barcelona, knows how to play that style of football, but when the club has a project of building a young, fast, athletic, dynamic team at PSG, he's adaptable as a coach to say, okay, we can do both. If I wanted to play this way, I can play this way. But I'm a good enough coach. If we want to play this way because our squad suits that, we can do that too. So I'm hoping that Mr. Cifuentes has the capability of doing one thing in the Championship and then evolving that in the Prem, and hopefully we are back in the Prem soon enough and there to stay.
Ragsy's getting trolled in the chat. I mean, mate, Ragsy, I'll ask you the same thing, mate, because I said, like, there's been a lot to be negative about now, but we can look forward now to the future and this season.
Yeah, absolutely. My stance on what I think of the current regime, that's not going to change. But like in regards to the football, we can still look forwards and try and find solutions. And you look at scouting reports, you look at recruitment, and you'd be like, there are still good players there. There's just there are still, players out there that want to go out there and prove themselves, that are not sort of infected with this bozo gene of past regimes that have clearly failed. And, we're latching on to players for the sake of loyalty when really they're just too mediocre to be bought elsewhere. So we just seem to sort of shift loyalty onto the players that we actually don't want here. And, and they should be discarded and they should be moved on. And I just think, we said this many times, but the treatment of our youth just needs to be far better than what it is. Luke Thomas has had 5, 6, 7 chances now. And he's just clearly a mid-table, mediocre Championship player that is, and we know his level.
How negative we been tonight, Ragsy? Jesus.
Yeah, but it's in for Hamza as well. And it's just how many chances? But Jadon Joseph and Will Alves and Sammy Braybrook, and these guys, they deserve their first chance. They deserve their second chance. So just under a new regime, under just at least a coach that understands them, that wants to bring the best out of them. But I'm not going to milk it and just being everything's all rosy again. That's the thing. You got we got the manager right. Cool. Now let's get all the other business right so that, we actually have a platform and we can see this going in the long run. So be happy, of course. I'm not saying don't be down about it. I'm just saying listen, let's just be patient here and just wait for things.
Can you go into the second part of that tweet about the signings and
we're gonna talk about it in just a sec. First of all, there's a poll in the chat, everybody, on YouTube. If you watch it on Twitter, which 230 of you are, head over to YouTube instead with the other 170 people. Get in the chat, get in the live chat. There's a poll. Are you happy with the appointment? Make sure to vote in that so we can get as many votes on that as possible.
It'll end up 92-8.
Okay, we'll see. Let's get over to let's go over to Doc. Doc, let's bring this up now, mate. As a part of the Alex Crook tweet, he says, also understand he has been told he has to sell players in order to bring in new signings. Now, that's a bit of nice transparency there. Whether he's got that information from the club or whatever, I don't know. But Doc, that's honesty. That's what we asked for from the board. They're being honest with him. They've told him you have to sell in order to bring in new signings. And that is going to be the important bit now for the rest of the summer. Moving players on that don't want to be here, moving players on that are on high wages in order to bring in some players for Marty to build his own squad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with that. I think it's the right thing to say, right? I want to say, a bloated squad as we stand. At the very least, players who none of us ideally want to see here, who either, don't have the head in the right place or simply don't fit the direction we want to head in if we want to head back to the promised land of, challenging for Europe in 5-6 years' time or whatever the goal may be. I like this. I think it means John Rock will now actually have to start learning how to sell players and not just buy them as well. So instead of selling them for free, hopefully we can get 3-4 million for Connor Cody, get him off the wage book. Hopefully we can get, a decent amount for Victor Christiansen, maybe even Luke Thomas as well. Wouldn't mind that. Mads Hermansen, I think, even though we all really like him, I think he's, brilliant for the Championship. I want to get 20-25 million for him so we can spend on fresh players and let Jakob Stolasic be the number one. I want to see some of these things flourish. And I think even if you don't sign anyone to a team, we still have a good Championship team. Yes, there are some obvious holes that need improvement. In particular, the glaring error is a striker. But let's just look at the number 10, right? You ideally have Jeremy Monga who could play there. You have Michael Golding who could do that as well, who both look good in the friendly. So even if you end up saying in August, we are selling a bit late because we are so late to this window now, because we've just been wanking for 70 days, waiting to the accounting period to change. Well, at the very least, we have some promising candidates who, will get a fair chance to prove themselves. I'm not against seeing Monga or Golding in the 10 for the first game of the championship. And if they step up to the plate, well, so be it. The only position where I'm screaming for a new signing would be the striker position. And all the other ones, I feel like I'm open to seeing what we've got. Take the chance.
Anil, let me come to you on this now, mate. There's this comment here from Mark who says, oddly enough, I don't mind the fact we can't spend until players go. Give the youth more time to prove themselves in these friendlies, and perhaps they'll impress enough to feature more. And obviously, we know that he does utilize youth a lot. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that comment, Anil? But also what Alex Crook said about you'll have to sell before he's able to bring in new players.
Just before Anil starts speaking, I'm gonna have to jump off. I'm burning through battery and data, and I've not got any internet, guys. Enjoy the evening. No Chris Wilder, no Gary O'Neill. It's all smiles today. I'll talk to you guys later.
See you soon, mate. Quack, quack. Bye-bye. Go on, Anil. Take it away, mate.
Yeah, two parts of that. Well, firstly, I think it's really good to use the youth players, and I hope he does do that. I mean, look at Barcelona. Obviously, they're a top-tier team, but when Hansi Flick came in, they were also in a big state, and he resorted to using a lot of the youth talents like Kubasi, Gavi, Pedri, Lamine Yamal. And then, they had an absolutely unbelievable campaign. They lost against Inter, but a really exciting team to watch. Obviously, we're nowhere near there, but for the championship, our players are good. They are going to make a big difference. I think that is important. I think the second part, though, is probably more telling, shows you that we are really in big financial trouble. I think that's why, we haven't been able to pay compensation. It's why, we're having to basically operate on the cheap. But again, I really dislike the fact that the club aren't more vocal on that, right? I mean, they should have said it years ago. Look, we flew too close to the sun. That's the TLTR, right? We were chasing the Champions League. We missed out. Then we were chasing Europe. We missed out on that. That's what led to our relegation because we overspent. We had a really high wage budget. We're in a championship. We tried to get out of it first time. We tried to buy this loophole. It also didn't work. So now the results of all of this, we're really sorry. We're in big financial trouble. It might take a rebuild year, but luckily we've got this really good young generation coming. We've appointed this young, exciting manager. We're going to blast out. That's what they should do. They're not going to say none of that because they treat us like shit, which is really, really annoying. The thing that I dislike. But as I say, I've seen it happen with many clubs where actually relying on the youth is the cheat code. It is the way to get you out of trouble. I was encouraged by what I saw. That wasn't even our best team playing. I think we can have a good season. And yeah, look at the weekend. We didn't have Bilal playing. We didn't have quite a few players playing, actually. And we still look pretty good. And for me, the most impressive players were all the young ones, weren't they? Ben Nelson in the first half, second half, Louis Page, Jeremy Monga, Luco, even the other JJ looked really good. So, I think there's a lot to work with there. Give them their chance, please. And we've got, thankfully, a relatively easy start. It's funny that the first game is Sheffield Wednesday, isn't it? That's going to add a little bit of spice to that for the first game. The Leicester City manager derby.
1-0 Sheffield Wednesday.
Well, look, maybe. But look, to be honest with you, we do have to say that. Manny is, I'm totally stealing his thunder tonight, but he did say as well in the past, like, look, the reality is now is that our pre-season is actually going to go on until the first 5-10 games of the season. And we're going to have to find what our best team is, and we're going to have to play our way through. I mean, that's the reality. We probably aren't even going to know what the final squad is till the transfer window. I bet there will be some last-minute signings that are stolen from us. We might make one or two. So we're going to have to make what we do with it. It's not going to be, I think, I think the last time we were in the championship, we started off in the best possible way. We got the manager in early. We got the signings in early. We started like a runaway freight train, and we kept the momentum up. I think it'll be a bit different this time around, but I think we can still do it. For me, my personal prediction is playoffs. But we've got we've got an interesting record in the playoffs, don't we? But if you win in a playoff final, it just hits a bit different, doesn't it? So I've got a feeling we might be in Wembley in about come the end of the season.
Manny, over to you, mate, on obviously the second half of that tweet that said, we'll have to sell. I mean, I don't think that's a massive concern for you, is it?
No. Sometimes less is more, and when you're in a financial mess, the last thing you do when you're in a financial mess is start spending. You've got to draw the line and say, I cannot spend any more until this mess is sorted. So sort the mess. That's fine. Everyone who's on over, I've already suggested some kind of template. Anyone who's earning over 40 grand is too much in the championship. Get off the books. Doesn't matter how good you are. If you are a really good player, then we'll get a good transfer fee for you. But we just can't. We don't want to have that wage structure anymore, because it means that other players want to work according to that wage structure. So it elevates the whole thing. So I'm happy to lose those. I'm all about giving these kids suitable game time. It's not just the kids in terms of the C-grade mob. It's our younger lads like Fatawu, who's still young. Mavadidi's 25, 26. Don't know if that qualifies as young. But Ben Nelson is young. Caleb Okoli's quite young for a centre-back. We've got options there who are good enough to take us forward in this league. And how many players do we need? Duck mentioned a striker, and I think we all agree on that, don't we? We definitely need a striker. We're down to one officially. Jake Evans can cover there. RU could cover there. But even in an absolute emergency, we didn't sign any striker. And if we end up starting with Daka or RU or whoever it might be, I still think there's enough in that team to, like Anil said, playoffs for sure. Playoffs.
Yeah. Ragsy, I mean, there's a load of comments here about what we need, and we'll speak about these, of course, over the coming weeks. But we do have a very good squad as it is at championship level. Some people might say we don't need to bring anyone in. I wouldn't agree with that. I think there are a couple of areas that we do need to strengthen in, but on the face of it, we have got a championship squad that is going to be able to compete at the very top.
No, like if you were to ask me like 2 weeks ago, at the end of the day, you wouldn't have that much activity in the transfer window, but you get like a decent enough manager in. I'm taking that at the end of the day. Manager is always like the priority sort of recruitment. So as long as he's in and he's got his ideas and he's ready to go with it, and just to enforce his philosophy onto the team, then we can figure out internal solutions. And yes, it may have to take like a month or two into the season for the ideas to really start bedding in. I think like with Enzo, it even took we started off like we were sort of easing through in like second, third gear. And then we started like after 2 months and stuff, then we started seeing like peak Enzo ball and stuff. And then his ideas really come into the forefront. So, and I think that'll be the similar case again, especially if like I said before, if they do end up staying, like sort of Bilal or Mads and stuff, still can't really say. But, you look at the youth, that partnership of Okoli and Nelson, really like that. I hope that's sort of like bedded in. And I was really impressed with King in terms of how he came out and spoke about in terms of he brought the youth into the team and sort of like positioning how he sort of set them up and told them what sort of roles to do. It just seems so sound in terms of like football knowledge and stuff. And he's already like just so eloquent when it came to the interviews and stuff. And like, I really sort of like, I was taken aback really by him as a coach and stuff and how he spoke and how he sort of like already had a bit of an influence on the youth. So him being part of the coaching setup, I think it's not only going to help him, but also help Marty as well moving forwards. And maybe he'll just be that extra voice to sort of back up for the youth as well. Maybe be that push to go and get some like Jaden Joseph and etc. into the team.
Yeah. Let's go on.
He's just saying but he has actually played against Enzo's Leicester twice. Well, sorry, once at least once. So in that one game, I think the first game it wasn't Enzo, it wasn't Cifuentes in charge of QPR, I don't think. So he's played against Enzo once. So he studied Enzo's system. He'll have studied our players, our playing squad, and he found a solution with worse players to us when we were hosing it in the championship. So that means he found a tactical solution with weaker players. That's impressive in itself. And when you hear that coach's voice, which is crucial because you want to hear the guy's voice and hear him speaking and hear him talking and how he delivers the message too, how can you not come to the conclusion this is a highly bright, determined a guy who got there off his own work, off his own merit as well. He was not an ex-player or had a contact or a connection that hooked him up. This guy's been, like Anil said earlier, this guy's been round the houses. He is scraped, he's worked hard, he's worked for next to no money, and he's earned his position as Leicester City manager. And I think that in that enthusiasm that he'll bring and the determination and that passion to drive forward will be infectious on the playing squad and all of us too.
A couple things to go through here, guys. If you peel your eyes to the screen, here we go. So first one, love that, a bit of Madry, but instead it's Marty Cifuentes. We are stuck with Guillem Balaguer for another season. Sorry to inform everybody.
Why does everybody dislike Guillem? Like, I've always liked Guillem. I used to watch Revista de la Liga on Sky Sports for you old guys. Used to watch that with Scott Minto. He was brilliant at introducing Spanish football to England, really. I think Guillem, and he moved to Leicester to support Enzo. So he actually lives.
He's been there a few years. He lives in Croft.
The guy is, of all the places he could live in the world, he chose to live in Leicestershire. What are we mean about the guy? Like, we should be. He's the guy he knows things as well, that what went on behind the scenes. I want to tap his brain.
He's in the posh side of Leicestershire. Right, let's move on. So a couple of things I want to bring up. First of all, here's the tweet. I have messaged James, like I said earlier, and hopefully we'll get him on. But he says, Marty Cifuentes is an exceptional manager. He's an ambitious manager. I expected him to continue to impress this season, and I expected him to be wanted. The club is in a position currently where it will lose good managers when they do well, just like the squad. Hopefully, it's tough to stomach, but the possibility for sustained success at QPR will come from great recruitment time and time again. Shit but true. Another one here. This was from 2016. Somebody's dug up an old tweet of Marty Cifuentes after Leicester won the Premier League. Wonderful to see the joy of these players, Premier League champions, and they did it as a team. Amazing. And then finally, I want to bring this up as well, what Anil was talking about earlier. So the youngest ever average age starting lineups in the Swedish league. And as you can see, Marty Cifuentes' name pops up a few times there. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So you can see there that he does favour the youth, which is, there you go, King Fox. Yeah, there we go. So thanks to King Fox for that graphic. But that's exciting, Anil, because it's we don't need to keep saying it. It's obvious. Leicester need to focus on their youth. They've got these amazing players coming through from Seagrave. We want to keep hold of them. Play them as much as you can, and it sounds like Marty will.
Yeah, I love that tweet you brought up. We won the title. That's really, really good. I have to say as well that is, even take our own blue tinted glasses off for a second, right? But that was why it captured the sort of, the worldwide football romance, right? Because it was the underdogs, and they really did play as a team, right? There was maybe 1 or 2 superstars, but really it was the way it all worked together, like the compact 4-4-2. The 2 massive defenders heading it out, 2 resolute fullbacks, and you got a bit of class and playing it all in. That's great to see. So he's all about that teamwork, I think. I mean, I often think, like, you guys might have seen the Club World Cup, just, PSG smashing Real Madrid. And for me, that is the difference, right? You got the team of superstars who, are very egotistical. They're not passing the ball to one another. And you got the finely tuned machine working together. And for me, I always want to see the finely tuned machine. I mean, that's why I love football personally. It's about achieving something together, right? It's really cool. You don't just win, you win together as a unit. So I really like the fact that we're going to have a manager who's going to be incorporating that. I think is very, very encouraging. And then we just asked the panel like a few questions. So, now we've got a manager in. So, are you happy with Marty Cifuentes? Sounds like everyone is. But then, okay, Marty or Roll or Marty or Ruud van Nistelrooy. So, this is how the summer's gone. What do you think of it overall? What are your take on that?
Just before, I just want to play this very small clip here, just from Sky Sports News.
This has verbally agreed a deal to become Leicester City's new head coach. Sky Sports News has been told. Talks between Leicester bosses and Cifuentes have progressed, and he could be confirmed in the role before the weekend. Final details of his contract now being worked on, including legal details relating to his compensation package with Queen's Park Rangers, who placed Cifuentes on gardening leave late last season.
So there we go. There's Sky Sports News confirming that. But just quickly as well, there is a poll in the chat. There's quite a lot of you that have already voted. So please, there's 208 of you on YouTube. Get in to the live chat. Vote on that poll. Is Marty Cifuentes a good appointment for Leicester City? Yes or no? Vote away because we're going to bring the results up soon. But yeah, 22nd permanent manager this century. Wow. There we go. Great stat there. But yeah, I mean, continuing on, Ragsy. I mean, and Neil said he's put the question that is Marty Cifuentes a good appointment for Leicester? Most fans are saying yes. I'm guessing you agree.
No, I do agree. And I think initially I did think maybe I do prefer Roll, but like especially what I've been hearing over the past day and stuff, like with his record in bringing through the youth, that's backed up statistically as well. So it's just like actually I'm starting to think now there's actually a lot more traits that I think are more favourable for us in our situation as it stands. So again, maybe they have like stumbled upon the right guy here. So it's like it is really encouraging to see that. And just his temperament moving forward. I think just the fact that if, let's say, we did get to the Premier League, I think he'd be a lot more versatile considering how he set up against us. In sort of this, he can counter attack, he can counter press. He is stubborn in his principles, but let's say in terms of the system, I think he could be a lot more adaptable as well. So I think there's multiple sort of layers that you can sort of look to him. You look at the vast coaching expertise, like the years of coaching that he's had in the expertise.
20 years.
That's a lot. Like, far more than Gary O'Neill. Like, so, immediately that's just a huge plus over him. And I think there's a lot more to sort of uncover with him. And I really hope he can do it. So, and I think like if he can finally tune this squad, get the right team, I think especially push through the youth as well, then depending on the points deduction and the things around us that he can't control, I think we could still like be in a good stead for this season. So like fingers crossed anyway.
Can I ask? Manny, go on.
Well, I'm going to show this. So here are the results of the poll.
92.8.
85% of people said yes. So yeah, what do you make to that, Manny?
More.
Come on, 14. Hold on. And who's the one person who doesn't pick yes or no?
Yeah, this happens every time. Don't worry.
Oh, right. Okay. I'll bring it up every time, I think, as well.
Yeah.
14%. Come on, 14%. You're better than that. Have we not convinced you with all this good droning on about history of football and playing patterns and styles and this ball and that ball? The guy's desperate for the job. He's taking a wage cut. He's taking... How many people... Like, do you really want to come to Leicester? Yeah. The first thing, he's coming because he's getting loads of money. Well, he's taking a wage cut to come to Leicester. That's how much he wants to come to Leicester. It's not many people who do that. So, I think this just ticks. Everybody needs to relax and get that number up to 100. But look, even when we were 17 points clear, we still didn't get to 100. So you just can't win all the time. But 85, that could have been the other way around, right? Like, are you happy with a new manager? And 14% were happy with it. It could have easily gone that way. So the question that I wanted to ask you three guys, an awkward question, I thought I'd spice it up a little bit. Does this mean that John Rudkin and Top deserve some praise for a shrewd appointment? I'm going to spice it up.
Hell no.
Well, John Manny, if they had the guy in the day after or 2 days in after Ruud was sacked, I actually would have said, okay, I understand it. That they had it all lined up and it was just for PSR and they didn't want to get the people like us gossiping all of the off season because were they or were they not? But because they didn't do that and what's emerged is they only started the managerial search after they sacked Ruud and they waited 70 plus days to sack Ruud. So no, not for me.
I mean, we give them credit to a certain degree with Enzo. So in a year's time, if we get promoted, I think we will sit here and say, yeah, that was the right choice, fair play. But right now, I'm with the nil, right? That we could have had him in before the Peterborough game. We could have had him in literally, 12 days ago, 11 days ago. He was out of a job. We could have got him all this time. He's clearly keen. It does seem to me that he is third or fourth choice. I think we can all agree with that on the club's part. They've clearly tried for Danny Roll. They've clearly tried. They've spoken to O'Neill and Wilder. We know they were interviewed, but now we have Marty Cifuentes. You could say, Ragsy, without going too deep on it, Ragsy, because it is a positive night. It is a positive moment, but you could say they may have stumbled by accident into Marty Cifuentes.
I think they stumbled upon the right guy. I think it is a good appointment. However, it's the scattergun approach over the course of 80 days that has led us to here. And the reason is it's not for his style of play. It's not for his philosophy. It's for the fact that he's cheap and practically, nearly free. So, and that's the whole priority from the board sense, to go and hire a manager that is cheap rather than what he offers. Again, it's convenience over quality. Not looking at his footballing principles whatsoever. If it was the case, then, we would have immediately slapped on it. When he was left QPR by mutual consent. So no, they deserve no credit whatsoever.
I'm a bit like Frodo from Lord of the Rings. We've been on this journey. You've been here, you've been there, you've been everywhere. As long as you end up back at the Shire where everything is peaceful, everything's relaxed, everything's comfortable. I know where everything is. I know where everything goes. I can put all those dark memories behind me because we ended up back in comfort.
Okay, so if they use this same approach again, and let's say Marty, I hope he doesn't leave if he does a good job, but let's say if he did, and the contingency plan is Chris Wilder through this same process, would you still be happy with that?
That was Mordor, by the way.
Let me, Neil, but let's be honest. I know you said you're not going to really give them, too much credit now, but this is, this is football, right? So when they get things right, they will be praised for it. When they get things wrong, we don't know if this is right yet, do we? Like, if he takes us up, there is a possibility in which he bombs and we are 18th in November, in October, and he's sacked. Like, that is still a possibility. But in a year's time, if he's gotten us up, if he's been a success, we will sit here and say that was the right choice. That was the right appointment in the end.
I mean, I sat on here waving a flag like an idiot because I thought it can't be any worse than having Steve Cooper in charge. It can, as Mick McCarthy would say, and it didn't end out too well. But, I mean, here's some interesting questions, though, for you, right? So I said this to you, at the end of last season. I'm still expecting a fairly heavy points deduction, right? It has since changed, as Steve Cooper in. It has since changed. But the thing is that, if we do get hit, let's say, with a 10-point penalty, then, playoffs we can get at best. So the thing is if we're going to be limited in the transfer market, then to be honest with you, it is time for a bit of a rebuild. And it is time for someone who's good. You do want someone who's good at using young players, good at developing a certain style of play. And maybe you're actually thinking in the back of your mind that it's next season that we really have to go up, even though this season we obviously want it to. Like, I'm saying to yourself, if I had to predict what I think is going to happen this season, I think we're probably going to finish 4th or 5th. I'm quite optimistic on that. We'll get to the playoffs. Semi-finals, I think over 2 legs we'd probably beat whoever we're up against, even if it's a good team. Playoff final, though, it's always a little bit of a lottery. So, you may not go up this season. So if let's say we get to the playoffs and then at the end of the season we don't go up, what are you thinking then? Do you think that's a bad appointment? Do you think that's a good appointment? And maybe to go even further, to spice it up again, well, what if we don't even get to the playoffs? What if we finish one place out of the playoffs, but we were actually playing quite good and the young talent was developed quite well? Or is that still seen as a failure? There's some interesting questions to think about.
Let me just say a big shout out to Dan Potts, who's done a raid on the channel, telling all of his viewers clearly to say Steve Cooper in. So welcome to the channel. Like 500 of you, much appreciated. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where to go from him, Manny. I mean, talk to us, mate. Talk to us how you're feeling really about
we could have gone down the Steve Cooper route again, or something similar to that. We could have gone down that Steve Cooper 2.0. We could have gone down. And we would have shit the bed and we would have kicked off and we'd have spent all the rest of this summer. I'm going on holiday next week. It would have ruined my holiday. I'd be arguing with the wife. I'd be kicking off with the kids. No one's getting an ice cream. I'd be bugged all summer. I'd be moaning about the team selections. But I think the mentality, that you go into it when you actually back the new manager comes in for whichever club, is you feel a little pep in your step, feeling good. Suddenly, look, we're smiling. Like people say, we're smiling. We've been suffering for a long time. We needed something to give us some hope, some size, some belief that we're definitely going to be in the mix for getting up this season, because we don't want to stay in this league too long. You know what happens if you stay in this league too long? You can do a Sunderland and others and be stuck here for ages. So, look, this guy is bright as a button. Love his coach's voice video. I love his history, his background, his determination, how it works with our players. I like the thought of his team selections. Having said that, he gets a lot of kudos and a lot of, love from us today. But if that first team sheet says Jordan Ayew and Bobby Cordova-Reid, he's going to get it like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a done? I mean, yeah, it's pretty much a done deal. To be honest with you, you wouldn't have all these journalists saying it is otherwise. So it's not announced yet by the club. That will come over the next couple of days, I'm sure. Hopefully before the Leuven game, we can see him out there. But yeah, quick shout out to Ryan, who's clearly come from Dan Potts' channel. Cheers, mate. Don't be lazy, chat. Hit the like button, subscribe. It is free. That is so true. It is free. Ragsy, let me ask you this, mate. Let me bring this up here if I can find it. Still think we have the best squad in the league. If we have 5 to 6 points deductions, we'll still be good. Now, I think as it stands with Bilal and all these other players, I think we probably do have the best squad. We will lose some. Ipswich, Southampton will make some signings, I'm sure. But come the end of the window, I would expect we'll have the top three. We'll be in the top three for best squads in the league.
I think, yeah, it's like, whatever sort of route that we've got down, we still got some assets. And it is kind of surprising, even with like the Southampton. I know they've made a couple of signings so far and stuff, but like even with Ipswich, not really too sure to know as to like how many signings they've actually made, if they've made any. They lost a lap. They'll probably need a replacement there. I think like Ipswich, with their assets and stuff, they are still in a good place to go and reinvest back into the team. They don't have like hanging debts over them, so they could potentially go and reinvest that back into the team if they did sell, or if not, they got kind of like a championship super team, like with a recruitment that they did last summer. Kieran McKenna is a big coup for them, still staying there. So like, yeah, we still need to get a move on, but there are still a lot of good players there that, and have proven time and time again, like from the last time we were in the championship with Enzo, that, they can dominate. They can like play multiple systems in this, like as much as I like hate some of them, but they are good. They are good at this level. So, and that gives me still a bit of confidence. I think the only thing that can sit here and derail us is if the morale did drop and all of a sudden the players turn and stuff, and it was just an absolute shit show moving down. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, especially now with Marty seemingly like near to be sort of appointed, and he can sort of bring up that morale and keep things moving forward.
I've got something really interesting to bring up, thanks to Anil, and let me see who it was on Fox's talk. More, is it More 94? Yeah, More _94. So we're going to look here at Marty Cifuentes' signings at QPR, and very interesting ages, really. Let's look at the age. That's what I would say at some of these players. So let's bring this up now. Here we go. Okay, so this is January 2024. You can see there are 3 players there in their late 20s. You've got Joe Hodge, who is 21. Again, on a budget, free transfer, loan transfer.
No money spent.
No money spent. Summer 2024. Okay, let's have a look here. And you can already see the age of some of these players is getting lower and lower and lower. Nicholas Madsen, 24. Scandinavian as well. A couple of Scandies I'm seeing. 24, 25, 22, 18. 18 again, 21, 23, 22, 21. Karamoko Dembele is an interesting one. I think he's pretty fast twitch, by the way, people. Exactly. Let's get to 200 likes, people. Absolutely. I'll come to you all in a second on this, but I'll keep going. January 2025. Again, a Brazilian there, 18 years old for $500,000. Harry Vale on loan from Chelsea. Ronnie Edwards, by the way, who's a great young centre-back at championship level, in my opinion. I'm not even going to try and say that, from Tottenham. Again, another loan, but again, not much money spent, utilising loans, utilising free transfers, young players. Manny, what is it? How do you feel, mate, when you see all this? Because this is promising, the type of profile of player they're looking at.
It fits in what we'd learnt about his training at Johan Cruyff Institute, his training with Ajax Youth. It fits in with that stuff, fits in with his Hammarby youngest playing squad. It fits in with our youth. Clearly, someone at the club has been paying attention if they've come up with this, because it actually does fit. And it's not just the ages, but I was just interested to look at some of the varieties of the clubs that he's obviously... I mean, I know it's QPR, but he will have had an influence. So I'm just curious to see how far is their net, how wide is their net, which countries are they looking at? So you can see there that obviously there's Denmark, Belgium, obviously England naturally. Can you scroll down a little bit and see some of these other clubs that they signed these players from?
You can see here.
There's lots of ball-playing players here, right? Jonathan Varane, half-brother of Raphael, by the way. Paul Nardi, goalkeeper who's good with his feet. If you go down, similar sort of thing, you're seeing sort of fast technical wingers as well. You mentioned Dembele, etc., etc. So, the thing is, it didn't quite work out from this season. So that's something we have to look at. But I think it's worth bringing up. We see Ronnie Edwards, ball playing centre back, right? That's my point. So he's got an upgrade on Ronnie Edwards. I would argue he's called Ben Nelson. So I think there are some exciting things to think about here.
I mean, it's not just that. There's a Chelsea under-21 player. So you're looking at Brazil, you're looking across Europe, and you're looking at academies of big clubs too. These are all sensible places to shop around for bargains. So, I'm trying to find it I always try and look at things from the other point of view as well. So you want to get a clear picture. And what's wrong with this? So the only time he's buying old players is when they're free. So if they're relatively cheap, you're not spending money, you're not making a large financial investment, then you can get the odd player. And when you actually spend money, like if you go down a bit,
I was just going to say as well, by the way, this Lucas Anderson, who he bought in, the 29-year-old, I'm guessing he actually managed him as well, Aalborg. I think he managed Aalborg. Am I right in saying?
Yeah, that's right, he did, yeah. That's right.
And then,
you remember they were desperate to stay up when they made those signings as well, right? So they were like...
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the ages of... when he's actually
goalkeeper...
But when he's actually spending money, he's actually spending more than zero. He's spending it on only players who have that youth or youthish profile. So there is an element of resale in those purchases. If you spend money on anyone who's 29 or 30, you're not going to get any money for them after 3-4 years.
What I will say as well, Anil, I don't know if you know how transfer market works. Is this the age now though? So were they younger maybe when he was signed?
Yeah, you're right. They might well have been 1 year younger, but this was taken quite recently.
But there's only one player here over the age of 30. Basically, that from what I can see as well. I mean, Josh says here he must have some Scandinavian contacts. We spoke about that earlier. I was speaking to Ric Flair earlier as well, actually, what he thought to the appointment, and he said, yeah, he's got Scandinavian contacts, and that's an exciting, interesting thing for the club. Josh says here as well, clear age profile identified. Ragsy, what do you think, mate, when you look at some of these signings that have been made?
Yeah, you know what, like. Maybe it's swaying me towards Marty after all over Danny here. Like, that influence that he's had in the next summer after he was appointed as well, when you look at the age profile and just like how technical and detailed in terms of the profiles that he's actually looking for to go and pull off, his progressive style of play. I just want to ask as well, do we know what, because I know they were in when we got relegated and stuff with QPR, and they were tipped to go down that season because I think quite a few of their directors left their roles at QPR. So I don't know when Marty came in, did he have a director of football? Did he lead some of the recruitment here? It seems to me he's had some sort of a major influence there.
Yeah. Do you want to just address this comment here, Manny?
Yeah. That's not what I said. I said I didn't say it's okay to sign players free. I said at least he didn't spend money on old players. The only old players he didn't spend money for. So it's not like Winks where we spent £10 million on him. That's £10 million. He hasn't spent £1 on anybody who's 28, 29 or older. So that's what I'm saying, that if he does actually spend money, it's on the more youthful profile. And if he does want an older guy, he's not using a large part of our transfer budget to do so.
Yeah. I want a Brazilian, bring me that fullback, says Rye, people. This makes me wonder, Anil, what the fuck was Cooper thinking with those signings he made? Seriously, so this is true though, isn't it? It did genuinely set us back. Even now, 2 managers down the line, we've got Marty coming in, and we're getting excited about the youth and stuff, but we have a big problem at the club because of what Cooper brought in.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say though is that should not have been allowable by the board. That's the bigger problem there. That's why it's important that you got to keep discipline so that someone's there above it, so you don't end up in these situations. We're all looking at Sunderland have just gone up. Have they signed anyone over the age of 25? I don't think they have so far. Maybe they'll sign Jordan Henderson just because obviously he's a iconic talismanic figure for them on a free. I could see them doing that. But otherwise, you can see their strategy. Their strategy is to buy young players, develop them. That way, worst case scenario, even if they get relegated, a lot of their players are going to increase in value. There'll probably be 1 or 2 that do a Liam Delap and get sold for more money than they paid for, and they'll find themselves in a good position in the championship to keep on going. So yeah, it was what he was thinking. He was thinking that, you need experience to stay in this division. It's not enough. You can't just play this pretty football. It's not going to work. And maybe he is right in saying that, right? But for me, I think we made the worst possible thing because, as you say, we've got now all these players that weren't even in the first team by the end of the season. They didn't really put up. Maybe Jordan Ayew you could say was all right. So yes, it has put us back, and it'll be difficult to shift that dead weight, unfortunately.
Brings up an interesting question about the type of signings that we'll see. So the first chance to evaluate him, apart from on the pitch, is what kind of signing, because he obviously will have an influence. We don't want him to have the final say, but he's naturally going to have an influence with Martin Glover. So very curious to see which players actually leave and which players come in.
Yeah, absolutely. 200 likes, gang. If we have hit 200 likes, big shout out to all of you that have done that. Much appreciated. Can Marty get KDH back on it? I don't think so. I can't see KDH back in the Championship, I'm afraid. Daniel says, can you not let some of these old boys leave for free? Might be someone mad enough to pay the wages if there's no transfer fee. Cut your losses, so to speak. I think this is what Manny says quite a lot. But Ragsy, I think to let players go on a free so soon after you've spent money on them actually is more harmful to PSR than keeping them around. It's worse because it goes against the books as a loss, which is a shame. Of course, we'd if we could snap our fingers and Connor Cody, Jordan Ayew, Bobby Reid are out the club and gone, we'd love that. But you have to be smarter with it, unfortunately, because of the PSR rules that we all disagree with.
Yeah, and with PSR as well, it's just like to sort of have that lump sum being like thrown into one go. And yeah, if you make a wrong decision and stuff, you're doomed with a contract and all that. I think Manny has sort of like mentioned this before and stuff, even if it's a case of a loan and like, they pay like, half the wages and stuff, at least it's half like of the wages taken off at least. And, it's just another player. They're just out the door and you don't have to like, worry about integrating them into the squad, even if they don't fit. But yeah, like quite frankly, and like at PSR, it has like limited us, like when we were sort of like on a high and stuff. And you do sit here and feel for like the likes of Villa and Newcastle that are trying to break into that so-called Big Six mold and stuff. But like, quite frankly, right now it's saving our ass. I think we'd be in far more debt if it weren't for them. So it's actually kind of good in a way that like it's maybe not with a transfer embargo and stuff for the sake of Marty, but like that they are kind of limiting our spending just so like because it's the same regime and they'll be the ones making the decisions and stuff. So any more decisions that are taken out of their hands, I'm all for. So like, and I'm happy with Martin Glover and stuff. Like if there's a potential for him to maybe be upgraded his role, not like director of football, but maybe some sort of like a technical director and stuff. So he still operates and does scouting and stuff, and they could have like established some sort of relationship with him and Marty, and then Rug can take a hike and maybe there's another DOF or something or someone above him to then sort of lead the budget and all that. Then maybe there's a bit more of a stringent pathway moving forward. But yeah.
This clearly also suggests that there won't be any board changes. It looks like the board have come to a decision, and if they've created a new pathway, it's not as if they're looking to change director of football and let him come in with new ideas and do that. So we are going to have to calm down on that front, whether we like it or not. And
well, we're not going to have to calm down.
As in, like, change. He's not going to change it now if you've just made a new appointment. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, but it's like it may not happen in the next 5 years, but you still have to enforce it.
5 years. I'm sure it'll happen in 5 years. But
well, I was reading earlier. I was reading the BBC article from December 2015. 2014, just before or during the Great Escape season, and you couldn't write it. Actually, we were having a bad start to the season. Some of our signings weren't performing very well, and they sacked then director of football Terry Robinson and appointed John Rudkin. And it's just crazy that they were willing to do that. Terry Robinson was only in the job for I think 18 months, and we've had 3-4 years of continued failures with recruitment, and this director of football is still in place. I'd be, there's no way that if Vishai was still here, that John Rudkin would still be in a job, in my
potentially
opinion.
One last shot at redemption? Yes, no, maybe?
No, hell no. They've had many chances.
Right, what can I throw again, just to spice it up again? What if John's taken aboard all the criticism? He's learned what people have said. He's evaluated all those errors from the wages, the contracts, and said, look, okay, I've made all these mistakes. I will not be doing that again. I get it. We're going to start with Marti Cifuentes. We're going to get rid of all these old guys. We're going to give exciting kids all the game time that we can do. And I'm going to give you what you wanted. I just said, that's fair. That's fair. I dig that for myself, but I'm just suggesting that possibility.
Listen, I would have loved
the latest news, by the way, is that this is not happening. This is over. No Chris Wilder means I stay. I do stay. Yeah, big shout out to Ryan Arson for sticking around. By the way, there's still like over 400 of you in here, so big shout out to the ones that came from Dan Potts and did stick around. Was feeling happy, then Manny spoils it by trying to be pally with Rodkin. Yeah, absolutely.
Unity. I'm trying to have unity. Look, unity. If you want to move forward, you've got to have unity. You've got to put stuff aside. You can have an argument, a disagreement. But at the end of the day, if he is our director of football moving forward and Marti Cifuentes is the manager, as we suggest, then I'm behind that. I'm fully behind that. If it was Wilder, don't get me wrong, he would have got it. He would have got it massively. If it was Dyche, he would have got it. But this one, at least me, I'm on board with this.
There's a question here from Joe who calls into the call-in show every single Monday night. He says, question for you all, are you all happy with this appointment, in all honesty? And Joe, trust me, if you haven't been here from the start, mate, as well as the live chat here, as you can see, we are happy in it, aren't we? I suppose you could say that maybe there definitely would have been options out there, other possibilities that we would have preferred maybe, but this one is pleasing us. We're happy and excited about this appointment.
Yeah, I think we can look at it objectively. Let's say at the start of this season, coming into pre-season, is that the number one choice that we wanted? No, I don't. I think it's fair to say he probably wasn't, right? But I think if you look at where the club is in the situation it is, and I think really it's the finances that are the big issue, then I'll ask you, what better appointments can we have? I know some of you do want to have the Dyches, the Wilders. I don't. I think that's a massive backward step. I think those guys are yesterday's men. I don't think it's sort of the forward progressive thinking that you need in modern football to keep going forward. So I think he's a very decent appointment. I said this all summer long. If I could have picked anyone, I would have gone for the manager that I think is the next big thing in football, which is Carlos Cuesta. He's the assistant manager to Mikel Arteta that worked hands-on with Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, really developed them. I've got a particular friend who works for Arsenal, and he's told me that at that club, they think he might be coming back as their actual manager in maybe 5 to 6 years' time. Christian Horner, something like that. So, yeah, for me, I would have tried to replicate as much as possible what we did with Enzo, which is to try and find the best possible up-and-coming young talented manager on the market and give him the Leicester City squad. That's how I would have approached it, right? If you don't have the finances for that, you've got to work your way down. And I think we've ended up with someone who's worked their way up, shown that they do understand the English game, had some success in the English game, and I think is ready for that opportunity to manage a bigger squad that is capable of doing more. I think he is a type of manager that would only really be appointed by a parachute club. But I think he's like a better than the other ones around it. I think it's somewhat similar to Russell Martin last year. But before everyone starts panicking over that, I think he's slightly better than that in his style of play and things like that. But Russell Martin, he had some success with smaller clubs. He never really proved he could do it at a bigger club. But then he was given a squad that was capable of competing. And he did ultimately get his team promoted to the Premier League. So I think it's a similar situation like that. It may be a wrong appointment. It is possible. It can all go wrong. Right. But for me, yeah, I think it's pretty good. And yeah, just put that, I'd probably say 7 for me. I went 7.5. I think it's pretty good. Yeah, I think if push comes to shove, I think Danny Rowe could be even better because Danny Rowe's not been fired in any job so far. Marti Cifuentes left his last job by mutual consent. If you look into it, it wasn't really a firing. It's more like he's shown that he wanted to move anyway. So I think it's a good appointment for me.
Ragsy, comments from you, mate. Last few comments from you on the whole situation, on the whole.
Yeah. I'd probably agree. Like maybe 7 out of 10, maybe even pushing to an 8 here. Like considering because when you look at all our boxes and stuff of what you need to check and tick and stuff, like young, progressive manager, interacts with the youth is a big plus for me, especially overall. Like that was never a shoe-in with Danny Rowe. To be fair, I just thought like when you looked at Danny Rowe, like with what he demands from his players. Maybe he geared towards with youth, but that was never a guarantee. Seeing that Marty has like a really good track record already with the youth is very promising to see. It's very intriguing, exciting heading into the season. So yeah, I'm like, in terms of the appointment, like, I was like a big advocate for Rude, and then that all came crashing down anyway. And I was like happy especially when we got rid of Cooper and got him in. I was like, yes, that's the guy we need. I think we can stay up and stuff. And then it all went wrong from there. So you all have this nice ideas and stuff. But I think the more, like, as time goes by, for me anyway, like the more I'm sort of reading into it, sort of knowing more about him, the more I'm actually like on board with this. So it's like, you know, I think there is a lot of promise there. And, you know, I think like finally he's due to be in, and you know, we can kick on now.
Yeah, Manny, over to you, mate, for your final comments.
I'll give it a good 8 out of 10. You know, with the potential of rising even higher. I really want to hear him speak. I want to hear him talk about his reasons for joining the club, his vision. I want to hear his voice, hear his passion for it. I want to hear his determination. I want to look in his eye, you know, old school. I want to look in the guy's eyes. It's like poker. I want to see if the guy I'm looking at is a bullshitter or if the guy is the real deal. And you can, I'm a true believer now. You look at the guy straight in the eyes and you'll be able to learn quite a lot. And that old-fashioned, I want to hear him just press conference. Can he handle the journalist? Does he have a bit of Jose Spice about him? Or does he have that Claudio style charm? You know, I want to get to know this guy a bit better. And next point is backroom team staff. Like, who's he bringing? Where does Andy King fit into this exactly? Are we talking coaching? Are we talking assistant manager? What exactly is going to happen with those kind of things? Contract length and the rest of it, all those, you know, all those fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. One role would have been an 8, Cifuentes a 7 for Josh. Encourages. This is what Mark says. I'm not a coach who, after scoring 1 goal, likes to just ask the lads to just defend and protect the goal, to maybe go on the counter. I prefer to be proactive and keep the ball high. QPR, yeah, people keep talking about the 6-2 game. QPR made 6 changes. RVN only made 3 for context in that game. People love to leave the context out. Will anyone actually pay for the sellable players we have? Genuinely can't imagine any club wanting Daka or Bobby Reed. Well, we'll have to wait and see on that one. All I know is he always brings someone called Xavi. Isn't this Xavi Calm? Isn't his surname Calm?
Yeah.
So hopefully, and lads, can I just say, I think we're all in agreement. We want to keep Andy King on at the club, and I think he will. I can't imagine him leaving at all. He's only just really begun. I think that would have probably been a major part of the negotiations with all the managers. You know, Andy King is here to stay. He knows the club well. He knows the squad well, and I think it's important he stays. Yes, we would love Conor Cody to hurry up with that transfer to Rangers. I think we're all hoping for that to happen.
A very smarty appointment, you might say.
Look at that. Andy King is a legend. Yeah. Ilias Chair coming in. Maybe that would be nice. That would be nice. Although I think a lot of people would rather us put the faith in Jeremy Monger and Lewis Page and all of these guys instead. Last few comments here. King Leicester, 20 years experience exactly in multiple leagues, multiple countries. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. You don't coach that long in many countries and be bad. Jono said, wonder what the combined total QPR games watched us. But yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, we'll be watching a lot more. Trust me. And of course, we will be getting a analysis, Marty Cifuentes analysis, you know, soon. Now we know that it's going to be him. So look forward to that one. When will the appointment be done? Let's play a game to end on, lads. When will the club announce it? Let's play a little game here. Closest wins. I'm going to say it's going to be Saturday morning. No, we're only on Wednesday. Friday. I'm going to say Friday morning. What are you saying, Anil?
I remember that Enzo, I think, was Friday. I think it was like 6 o'clock, but they started teasing it before that. They had like a cup of coffee in the morning and stuff like that. So I think there'll be something like that. The social media team, after like they've been starved, they're like, oh, we can do something. So you'll probably start seeing Spanish flags. Friday morning, and I think it'll be done. I don't think I'll leave it quite so late. Maybe 3 o'clock on Friday, I'll say.
Manny, what are you saying, mate? What's your guess? What's your prediction?
Get it done by the weekend. Everybody can relax, enjoy the weekend. You don't want it to drag into next week. let Andy King take the team for the weekend. Marty will just be there to watch and to have a little overview and probably have a little word with the lads. But it's just a teaser on Friday. The game is it game Saturday, is it?
Yeah, 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock Saturday. Let's go. Oh, sorry. Vamos!
Yes.
Gotta get used
That's
to
what it will
this,
say. That's what the
gotta get
tweet
used to
will be,
this,
won't
don't
it?
we?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get used to these. Like we're gonna have to, every time we score Vamos, we'll have to give it the big one.
And over to you, Ragsy. When are you predicting, mate?
I
When
think
we
you
gonna hear
guys
from the club?
overestimate our media team, man. Like, I think it's. I'll go with Monday afternoon.
What? Gee,
I
you are
No,
a miserable
miserable git. Oh, you're a miserable git, aren't you?
Jesus.
Bloody hell.
My God.
Oh, by the way, was that a Marty Farty from Regsy?
I would say.
By the way, it's not actually in Spanish. It's actually the V is a B, pronounced as a B. So it's more like vamos. It's actually in Central South America, it would be vamos.
Yeah.
But since he's Spanish, well, Catalan Spanish, it's vamos!
That's very wishful thinking there, harder than ever in 30 minutes. I don't think so, mate. And I promise you, I'm not coming live again if it comes true. We're going to leave it there. I was going to quickly say, by the way, for all the people in the chat, and I think Manny said it, I actually think it will be I don't think it'll be Kingy taking the team. It's a training game, really. I don't see why it would be Andy King being on the sideline for it. I think it will be Marty personally. Start instilling everything into them, but we'll see. Drop Vamos in the chat, everybody. Let's send it with that. Drop Vamos in the chat.
Not vamos, BBB.
No, but it's spelt Vamos, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's pronounced vis-a-b.
So Vamos in the chat. Right. We're going to end it there. Big shout out to everybody who's joined us tonight. Big shout out to Dan Potts for sending everybody over as well. I know there's still some of you here, so thank you for sticking around. Thanks to Anil, thanks to Ragsy, thanks to Manny, and thanks to Doc. Quack. We will be live. Well, we're going to have to go live tomorrow, aren't we? We'll have to go live tomorrow. I didn't have it planned, but we're going to go live tomorrow evening. So we'll be here for that, of course. There we go. There's all the Vamos in the chat. Big shout out to everybody. Thank you so much. We will see you very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Manny's going to go and grab he's going to go grab some tissue and a photo of...
Here's me. I was thinking about some nice chorizo, some nice bread, maybe some olive oil or something. I'm trying to think of something that's Spanishy type.
Where's the olive oil going?
Estrella.
Where's the olive oil going?
Yeah, that's true. I've never heard of that one before. Olive oil.
It
Right.
is late.
See you all.
It is late.
Bye-bye. Thank you to today's sponsor, Match Bingo. Over 200 grand has been paid out to players so far by taking sports betting, football and bingo and combining them into one brilliant app. Make sure to get your bingo card for any Leicester game in the upcoming season by clicking the link in the description or via the QR code on screen.